It's time for America Outdoors Radio, the show that covers the outdoor scene across the U.S. of A. and the entire continent. Fishing, hunting, conservation, outdoor recreation, and great destinations. We cover it all every week. It's your country, your outdoors. Let's explore it together with your host, John Cruz.
Welcome to the show. Let's start off with a question. When is an endangered species recovered? Apparently, not when biologists from the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife say they are, but when a judge says so. That's the scenario playing out in our Rocky Mountain states, where the federal government declared victory and said the greater Yellowstone grizzly bear population found in Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, and numbering 700 bears, had been recovered. Environmental groups disagreed, though, and did what they do best, filing a lawsuit to overturn the decision. After hearing arguments, the judge ruled they are still endangered, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is now officially listing them again as an endangered, or in this case, a threatened species. This may be part of the reason the Department of Interior is doing an overhaul of the Endangered Species Act, a topic we will dive into at a later time because, quite frankly, that could take up the entire hour. Speaking of the hour ahead, we've got a good one for you. Dan Bastle will be coming at you from the headquarters of Mepps, the makers of those great spinners and more in Wisconsin. He's going to be talking about late summer and early fall pike tactics. If you've never tangled with these toothy water wolves before, you are missing out on a fun time, and Dan's got some great tips to help you get in on the action. The first college football games start this weekend, and with college sports in mind, we'll tell you about one of the fastest growing ones out there, collegiate bass fishing. Kyle Curry with the Bass Pro Shops Collegiate Bass Fishing Series will join us to tell you more about that. It being summer, you are doubtless using a cooler to keep your food and beverages, well, cool, especially in the late summer heat. One of the better brands out there are Mammoth Coolers out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll be chatting with the CEO of the company, Mike Hannigan, who will tell you more about them and how they managed to build a very high-end cooler that costs far less than the competition. Finally, we've got a passing to share today. Tred Barta, that very well-known outdoors television personality, died in a car accident in the Yukon Territory 2 weeks ago. Tred was a larger-than-life figure who was struggling with physical ailments that few could bear, and we'll talk a little about this person who worked to inspire others despite the troubles he faced on a daily basis. Before we get into all of this, though, it's time to introduce you to a very impressive man, a fly shop owner, a book author, and a fine fly angler, too, from the Old Dominion State. Next on America Outdoors Radio, we're welcoming some new listeners this weekend, tuning into our program on WBLB, AM 1340 and FM 107.5 out of Pulaski, Virginia. And with the state of Virginia in mind, we are now taking you to Edinburgh, Virginia, in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley. That's where you'll find Murray's Fly Shop, which has been in business since 1962. And that's where you'll find the owner, Harry Murray, who is not only a fountain of information and inspiration, but also the author of a book, Trout Fishing in Shenandoah National Park. Harry, it's great to have you on the air.
John, it's good to be here. How can I help you folks this morning?
Well, you can help us by telling us a little bit about Shenandoah National Park and the fishing there. And I guess first off, for our listeners who haven't been there before, including myself, tell us a little bit about fishing in that park. What's the setting like, and what are we fishing for there?
You'll be fishing for wild brook trout. We do not stock any trout in the park, so we're fishing for wild brook trout. The park is approximately 100 miles long, running from Front Royal in the northern section to just down close to Waynesboro in the southern section. There are approximately 20 streams in the park. The prime time to fish the park would be the months, say, mid-March to mid-July. After that, it depends solely on the water levels. If we get good rains through the summer, we can fish it well into the fall. We usually don't like to fish in October, November, December because the brook trout are spawning. But up through September, the fishing can be good if the rains come. We have some of our best hatches in the spring, in late March and April would probably be the peak of our hatches. These are all listed in the book I've written, Shenandoah National Park, and also in the Virginia Blue Ribbon Stream book. All these hatches name the flies and what fly patterns we use to match them. But the Shenandoah National Park, if you like wild brook trout, it is outstanding fishing.
Well, I love wild brook trout. They're one of my favorite fish to go after. When it comes to size, are we talking 6 inches? Are we talking pan size? Or what are we talking
trout
about?
Would be 12 inches long, since they don't live but about 4 years at most. But there are a lot of good population of trout. And right now, the park is in excellent shape. And I think if we keep getting our rains along the rest of the summer, we'll be good well into September.
When it comes to some of your favorite streams to fish in the late summer, early fall, we're talking, now through September, what are a couple you'd recommend, and maybe a fly selection you'd recommend as well?
Piney is an excellent stream to fish. That's in the northern section of the park. Piney is real good. The Hughes is also an excellent stream to fish. Those are two of the very best at this time of the year, because normally the water level holds up fairly well in those. We play a match the hatch game. The Mr. Rapidan parachute drive, which I developed to match the Epps pluralis, is definitely the number one fly in the park, because not only does it match the Epps pluralis, but it matches the Baetis and it matches the March Brown. And that's definitely the favorite fly. Now, during the summer, once the hatches are over, we switch over to the Murray's Flying Beetle and that type thing, and the Mr. Rapidan ant. But we do taper down in size. We go down, once we get into the summer, we're fishing 6X, and most of our flies would be 16s and 18s, but it's still providing good fishing. The streams are all accessible off of the Skyland Drive. Some of them are accessible from down in the valley floor, but all of them are accessible off the Skyland Drive, and usually that's where you'll get your best fishing.
In addition to the description you just gave us, you actually offer classes at the fly shop, and one in Shenandoah National Park at certain times of the year too, don't you?
Yes, we do. Probably about 20 schools in the Shenandoah National Park where we meet over at Gray's Mountain Lodge at Syria, and we do a slideshow, and then to take the people up and fish in the park, we provide the rod and reel for them during that, and actually it's a lot of one-on-one fishing with the client so they can learn to fish, so they can be able to do this on their own when they're out there. But we do approximately 20 classes, and then I do a lot of, so to speak, private classes for the Shenandoah National Park.
Well, it sounds like a great service you're offering. The Shenandoah sounds like a wonderful setting to go fishing for brook trout.
While they're close by, John, they're right beside the North and South Fork of the Shenandoah River. These streams are immediately west of the Shenandoah National Park and parallel, and these are both excellent smallmouth streams that are fishing well at this time of the year. That's sort of a trade-off for us. If the trout streams get too low, we'll say throughout August or September, we just strictly switch over to the smallmouth. And the way we fish for smallmouth here on these two rivers is the same way I fish for trout in the larger streams out in the Yellowstone, the Madison, and that type thing. So although we love our brook trout, if those streams get too low, we just slip right down the hill and fish for smallmouth.
Don't tell anybody, Harry, but I love stream fishing for smallmouth bass. That really trips my trigger. Now, when it comes to the Shenandoah River, are you fishing from shore or are we fishing in a boat? How big of a river is this?
The North Fork of the Shenandoah is the smaller of the two. That's probably about 100 to 150 feet wide. South Fork carries 3 times that water volume. Might be 100 yards wide in places. But it's a good bit wider, but I still prefer wading them to floating them. Now, a lot of my friends like to float, and we use a boat primarily as transportation and get out and do our serious fishing wading just like we would on the Yellowstone or the Madison. But you can float them or wade them or do both, because the smallmouth fishing is really very good. And that's all those access places are covered in that book I wrote, Virginia Blue Ribbon Streams. I put the James, New, Clinch, Rappahannock, all those are in there with the public access places. So that'll help our listeners quite a bit.
Okay. Well, folks, you can look for Harry's books, obviously at his fly shop, or at Amazon.com. Just look for Harry Murray, Trout Fishing, Shenandoah National Park, or Harry Murray, Blue Ribbon Streams, Virginia. Those results are going to pop up. Or, better still, drop in to Murray's Fly Shop the next time you're in Virginia. It's open 8 to 4 Wednesdays through Saturdays. It's right on Main Street. And, of course, his website is open 24 hours a day. You'll find that at murraysflyshop.com. That's murraysflyshop.com. And can you buy those books there too, Harry?
Yes, we have all the books. I've written 17 different books, but these are the two that I think would help them most.
They sound like good ones to me. Again, the website, murraysflyshop.com. Get yourself some books, sign yourself up for one of those schools, and get information about fishing in the Shenandoah Valley. Harry, thanks so much for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thank you a whole lot, John. It's been a pleasure.
Why book at Sportsman's Cove Lodge?
Why is Alaska like no other place on Earth? It hasn't changed in thousands of years.
From the way you get here on a float plane to the way you go out with the guides and the boats, it's just a professional experience.
And I said, this is as good as it gets. I said, if you can't catch fish here, you can't catch fish anywhere.
Your experience with us will leave you speechless.
Book now at alaskasbestlodge.com.
Are you looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook, because we've got it right here for you. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer affordable platforms to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting John Cruz through his website at AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. Hurry, though. If you wait too long, the big opportunity might just get away. AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
If you're going to buy a firearm, why not get it the way you want it? You can at Jones Arms. They're the firearms retailer that also designs and custom builds a variety of firearms. From competitive shooting and hunting to personal security, Jones Arms has the guns, ammo, and accessories you need. Jones Arms carries a full line of safes to keep your guns and other valuables secure. Jones Arms on 101 in Sequim. See them on Facebook or jonesarms.com. You're back in with America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It is the height of summer as we roll into the end of August. It's hot out there in a lot of our United States, even the northern tier of our United States. And one thing that people like to do up in the upper Midwest in particular, and in other places in the northern half of the U.S., is go pike fishing, those toothy water wolves that fight like nobody's business. But how do you catch them at this time of year? Well, I figured I'd ask somebody who knows. His name is Dan Bastle. He's with Mepps and Mr. Twister out of Wisconsin. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, John. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you know, I've only been pike fishing a couple of times, but I've really enjoyed it. And I've done everything from throwing weedless spoons to the classic 5 of diamonds to even catching them on jigs with trailers. But I've never fished the heat of the summer for them when the weeds are really high and the water is really warm. How do you go about fishing for them this time of year?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it definitely takes a little different tactic. And, you know, obviously weedless is something to be considered, and we can even get into that a little bit later with our new Comet Combo. But, you know, I really like to get right on those weed edges. So, you know, 5 to 10 feet, you know, look for where those weeds are starting to kind of dissipate into a little bit, you know, more depth, so to speak. So you get a little bit maybe cooler water. And that's usually where those fish are hanging. That's typically what I like to do. And I even like to use even a countdown approach, John, meaning that, you know, I'll cast out into the deeper water, let that thing come toward that weed edge, but let that lure hit and then let it sink a little bit. And, you know, if you count down, you know, 5 seconds or whatever, and then just give a nice slow retrieve, that's usually typically what I like to do. And again, like you said, and we had talked earlier, I love the pike fishing. And, you know, I'll use really depending on what that weather is too, John, is, if it's a cloudier day, I usually like to use a little darker lure, something maybe with a little bigger profile, and then you get those clear days. I usually like to use, something with a silver blade, and I love the Mr. Twister trailers. What I'll do is use a 3-inch Mr. Twister white curly tail grub and just cut that thing off and put it on for a trailer. But yeah, that's typically what I like. I like to target, again, 5 to 10 feet weeds, and I love it when they're, you're right on the edge. I think that really works well.
When I think Mepps, I think spinners. What do you like to use, whether it be spinners or otherwise, from the Mepps product line when it comes to summertime pike fishing?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the classic Aglia number 5. To me, is the go-to bait. And the nice thing about that bait is that you're going to catch a lot of different species of fish. I mean, you might even catch a walleye in this thing. You might even catch a muskie, but Northern just cannot resist this bait. And again, it's a number 5. A lot of times I won't use it dressed. I'll just use it, again, just plain. And I definitely like to, at times, put a little trailer on there, just, again, that white Mr. Twister trailer. But I love that classic Aglia. I'm a huge fan of the Black Fury when you get those cloudy days or you get those little storms that pop up.
Sure.
And then the other one, too, that I know a lot of people have in their tackle box is the Comet Minnow. And, again, that comes in quite a few different combinations. But I like to have, the silver shad, which is nice. It has that silver blade, so you kind of can get those nice sunny days with that. And then the perch one has that gold blade on it. So I like that, and I think that works really well for cloudy days. And that's definitely, I would say, if I were to have, 3 baits, it would definitely be that classic Aglia, the Black Fury, and then that Comet Minnow.
All right. Everything you say makes perfect sense. After all, pike are ambush predators. And so, fishing the edges, those weed lines, and drawing that reaction strike with those spinners, like I said, perfect sense. But let's switch gears a little bit, because it might be August now, but September's right around the corner. The waters are going to start cooling in the months of September and October. How do you change your tactics when it comes to fishing in the early fall?
That is such a great question. And I think what happens is a lot of fishermen will stay in that, that maybe that 5 to 10 foot range, a little shallower. But what I like to do is to change, from that 10 foot to like 8 to 15, get out there just a little bit deeper. And I can't say this enough, but you have to slow that presentation down. And, staying with an Aglia, we have the bait series, which, mimics the, like a perch or whatever not, and slow that thing down. And again, do the countdown, maybe even give it, 7 to 10 seconds on the countdown. But again, retrieve that thing a lot slower. And one of the things I really like to use is a Cyclops. And what I will do is, use it with that single hook and then maybe even dress it with, like, let's say a sucker minnow and just work that thing along the bottom real slow. Try to get that hook as weedless as possible and then just work it real slow. That seems to work well. But again, I can't stress enough, depending on the weather, if it's cloudy, if your water's stained, I would use a darker color. If it's, you've got a bluebird day out and it's clear water, I would just use something a little bit more flashier, maybe a little silver or whatnot. So I would say those are the 2 things. I would say get a little deeper. Definitely still make sure you're around some green weeds in that fall, because a lot of the weeds are starting to die. But find those green weeds. And again, stay on those edges. Just get a little bit deeper.
Well, that's some advice that I think is going to come in handy for me when I go fishing in central Montana in October, doing a little cast and blast for pheasant and some pike fishing. So thank you for that. Speaking of destinations for pike, we got about a minute left. What's your favorite place to go pike fishing?
Well, Lake of the Woods is phenomenal, and I think that whole northern half of Minnesota is great. If I do Canada, I like to go on the eastern side of Lake Superior. I know a lot of folks go on the western side, but a town called Wawa, which is up in Ontario, phenomenal place, great people. They have some really nice fly-ins, I would say there. But I want to make sure people don't, overlook northern Wisconsin. Here in Langley County, right where the Mepps lures are made, come here, get a tour of the facility, and enjoy some of the 800 and some odd lakes we have right here in this county alone. So that's Langlade County right here in Wisconsin.
Well, I'll tell you what, I might have to come up there and get that tour from you, and you can take me fishing. That sounds like a whole lot of fun.
Absolutely. That is an invitation from us here at Mepps in Hannigan, Wisconsin. And again, this is pike capital, I would say, of the world. So definitely 100% give us a thought and would love to meet up with you.
All right. Well, folks, again, that's Dan Bastle with Mepps and Mr. Twister. We got to wrap things up, but if you want to find some Mepps lures for pike fishing this summer and fall, just go to your local store. Mepps is just about everywhere. If for some reason you can't find what Dan was talking about, go online, and there's a good reason to do so. If you purchase $35 or more of tackle from Mepps.com through August 31st, they will throw in a free Cyclops spoon. Just mention that offer and you get a free Cyclops spoon that'll work great for pike, in addition to any other lures you order, as long as you're ordering $35 or more. We've got to go, Dan, but thank you so much for sharing this great information about pike fishing on America Outdoors Radio.
Yes, thank you so much for Mepps here. We really appreciate the opportunity.
NorthwestFishingReports.com is the Northwest's largest fishing reports website, featuring well over 50,000 fishing reports, videos, articles, and more. All 100% free. Catch more fish with Northwest Fishing Reports. Log on today.
So you sit down and do your budget, and you look at all your monthly costs and your bills and your income, and it seems like there's never quite enough. You know what would really help? Finding $500 a month to help balance things out. That is the typical savings, $500 a month for a family when you switch to MediShare for your health care. And when it comes to healthcare sharing ministries, MediShare is really the gold standard. It's been around for 25 years and has more than 400,000 members. It's been around so long and grown so much because it works. And whether you're single or married or have kids, this could make sitting down to do a monthly budget a lot more fun. $500 a month can more than cover a car payment or pay back loans, whatever. So join MediShare and go out to dinner to celebrate. Here's the number to call. They are incredibly kind and helpful to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
Welcome back to America Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It's the end of August, and if you're like me, you're probably looking forward to another season of college football. As a matter of fact, college athletics are really big around the nation, and I think a lot of it has to do with the passion that the athletes bring to whatever they're doing. One sport they have now that they didn't have when I was a young man is collegiate bass fishing, and this has also turned into something really big. So big, there's even a great podcast that's all about it. It's called We Are Collegiate Bass Podcast, and with us here to tell you more about it is Kyle Curry. Kyle, welcome to the show.
John, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time and letting us have this opportunity to be with you today. We're glad to get to share it with everybody across the nation. And just a quick history on the podcast itself. We came up with the idea a little over a year ago, and we just wanted to provide an outlet. A podcast kind of become an avenue for people to get stuff whenever they want it, jump on, listen, road trips, things like that. And it's just kind of an all-purpose news update of sorts. I worked in news for a while, and now I'm helping here with the tournament trail and stuff at the office. And it's just, get on, cover it, get to know the kids, talk to them, bring them on, and give them a platform. But believe it or not, this has grown into college bass fishing, as you mentioned, is a sport. You get on these websites, athletic departments for these certain colleges that do have teams, and you go through there and you can see the football roster, the basketball team, the baseball team, the bass fishing team is listed. They've got coaches. Some kids are getting scholarships, and they're getting to go to school, not necessarily full rides, but they're getting help, and they're going to college to fish and get an education. It's just a great opportunity, and it's something that's evolved over the last 10 to 15 years, and it's amazing to see that it's reached this point now.
Oh, I think it's just amazing, like you said, that it has evolved in what it is today, where it really is rivaling with some colleges the importance of the other major sports. Give or take, how many colleges participate in the Bass Pro Shops Collegiate Bass Fishing Series?
Yeah, so when we take a look at college fishing as a whole, we go with upwards of 400 plus teams or clubs. So we've got the two parts to that are the teams, as we're talking about, they're sanctioned by the school, they're represented through the school, there's funding involved, coaches and all of that. But then there's also the element of this, which is the club aspect. And so those are kids that I myself went to the University of Arkansas. Ours was a club. I was the club president, fished for the school. That's how I got to know everyone here and have become involved with the tournament trail following graduation. But they're clubs, so they operate amongst themselves. It's a collective group of somewhere between 10 and 50 anglers, depending on how big the clubs are. And they operate it. They've got presidents, secretaries, and they run it all themselves. But amongst the clubs and the teams, we go with a little over 400. And then the total number of those, ranging on the size of school and the team, we put the number at, 15,000 plus anglers across the country are involved in college fishing.
Wow. What an incredible turn. Like I said, I went to college, a little place called Eastern Washington University back in the 1980s. Nobody ever dreamed that there would be bass fishing as a club or as a sport, but out here in the West where I live, there's quite a few of these clubs, and there's some powerhouses that have developed. As a matter of fact, my alma mater for a few years was one of those. They've kind of faded in recent years, but today, there are certain colleges, Bethel University comes to mind, that are true powerhouses that actually recruit anglers from all over the U.S. to be on their teams. What are some of the other powerhouses that, in the world of collegiate bass fishing, rival some of those SEC teams like Georgia and Alabama?
Yeah, you go back and look, to keep it in the football notion there, you remember the BCS system and the rankings, and there's all kinds of polls and stuff. So in college fishing, we're responsible for one of the most respected ones in the sport, and it's the Bass Pro Shops School of the Year presented by Abu Garcia. This past year just wrapped up at the end of May for us. The winners of that were McKendree University, so I put them in there. They're one of those that's a team. Coach John Renderer, he runs it with help from the school and their team, and they got there and do a really good job. And I got a list here. You mentioned Bethel. There's several major college trails. There's 3 national championship events. Each one does their own. And this year, I believe Bethel had a first, a second, and a first at each of those national championship events, which that's just amazing. And you mentioned Alabama. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but, if you had to pick a likeness in college fishing to them, they're working on it. They've won our championship event the last 2 years. They won the School of the Year the year before that. They've won our championship event now 3 times, I believe, over the last 5 or 6 years. And so they're working at it. But it's a good mix of schools with teams, but there's also clubs in there. You mentioned the University of North Alabama. They won the School of the Year before. They won our national championship event. They get out and compete a lot. For those familiar with anglers at the professional level, Auburn University comes to mind. You've got the Lee brothers. That's where they went to school, right. And they do a really good job of getting out and competing. And another one is Murray State. And then not to be left out, 2 other teams that compete year in and year out the top 5 of School of the Year. We've got Adrian College. They're located up in Michigan. They're currently leading the Bass Pro Shop School of the Year. And then Bryan College. They've won it a couple years ago as well. That's a couple that come to mind when we look at those teams that are out, that compete a lot. And when you compete a lot and are successful, you're up there at the top of all the news headlines.
Let's talk about getting involved as a college student with one of these teams. Using that football analogy, you're either invited and given a scholarship to play, or you can walk on and hope you make the team. How does it work with these bass clubs or, these actual bass teams at the college level in terms of getting on with one of them?
Yeah, so if we talked about it here, you see the common theme. There's really 2 routes that it goes. So the clubs versus the teams. The clubs are more, not necessarily all-inclusive per se. You show up, you can be as involved as you want to be. I myself, the University of Arkansas, our series, the Bass Pro Shops Collegiate Bass Fishing Series, at the time was fishing the championship at Lake Louisville. I decided that's where I wanted to go to school. I live 5 minutes from the lake. The year before I go to school up there, I show up, I check out the weigh-in, and Arkansas wins. How cool is that? They win the national championship in 2008.
Love it.
Come in the fall of 2009. And so that spurred on me to want to get to learn more about the program, right? So you start sending some emails. Now with the advent of social media, it's even stronger now than it was back in 2009. And so a lot of it's, I've had them on the podcast. You ask them, hey, at the end of this, pub your program, tell people how to get involved. And a lot of it just in the end for these public universities that operate as clubs, simple direct message on Instagram. Just start a conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about. In a matter of minutes, you find out what you need to know. And I know that for ourselves, a lot of these schools will hold like a mixer type deal for their clubs. So if you're a freshman going to college and you see that the intramural department is hosting something at the rec center or wherever it may be, there's a good chance that clubs like this, even other sports, you've got bowling, shooting sports, archery clubs exist, these bass fishing clubs as well, albeit something like that. That's opportunity to meet the representatives of those clubs. And it's, some clubs may involve a yearly fee, just like your weekend club tournaments with your, city bass club. But for the most part, show up and you're involved as you want to be by reaching out to them.
One last question, and I think a lot of students are going to have this question. Do I have to have a bass boat if I want to be part of the club or part of the team, or are they provided?
Yeah, so when you're talking about the teams, we didn't hit on it there just before that, but if you're the teams, a lot of these is recruiting, so they're bringing you on, and some of these schools do have their own boats. So I know that Adrian College, they run a couple of Ranger boats. They've got a deal worked out there. They've got them wrapped, got the school's information on it, all that good stuff. In those situations, there's boats provided. For the most part, though, 95+% of those that are going to be involved, you're providing all your own equipment. Even some of these schools that have the teams, it's the same way, but especially with the clubs, you're all self-ran, self-funded. It's up to you to find a way to get out on the water. So I would say that when I was in school at Arkansas, we probably had roughly 30 to 40 members, with 20 of those being very active. And what you find is, most of the time, I myself, the people that I fished directly with, I'd say I had 2 or 3 different guys that I fished with throughout school. Of them, one had a boat. So when I first went as a freshman, I myself didn't have a boat, and I had to find a way to get in with someone that did. And when I did, good things happened. Parents let me bring the boat, all that good stuff. But you are not required to have a boat. You can show up, but you've got to have one to be able to compete. We don't allow kayaks, aren't a part of college fishing. Bank fishing isn't part of college fishing. You got to be able to get out on the water. But if you got a trolling motor, a 2.5 horsepower on the back of a John boat, you're legal and ready to go. So anything that can get you out on the water like that. But yes, there's anglers that do it that don't have boats, and they're helping their boater with money, getting out there, paying for gas and all that good stuff. And then there's some teams that if they're fishing out of one boat and it breaks down, the co-angler's got one and they pull it in and call it up and they're ready to go fishing again.
Wow. All right. We are going to have to leave it at that. But as you can hear, folks, the world of college bass fishing has really grown up in a hurry, and it is a big deal. If you want to keep up on it, here's the website to go to, collegiatebasschampionship.com. That's collegiatebasschampionship.com. You can listen to the podcast there. You can find out lots of other information too. Kyle, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
You bet, John. Thanks for it. I appreciate the time.
We've been telling you about Sportsman's Cove Lodge in Southeast Alaska for a while now, and there's a reason. They are the only Alaska lodge we talk about in this show. It's because they're truly Alaska's best lodge. The adventure starts with a float plane ride from Ketchikan, after which you'll get the chance to experience some of the best hospitality, food, and wonderful people you'll ever meet. Wildlife is abundant, from bears and deer to eagles and whales, and let's not forget the reason you're here, the fishing. Halibut, salmon, lingcod, rockfish, true cod, and more. It's all waiting for you in abundance at Sportsman's Cove Lodge. Book your trip today at alaskasbestlodge.com. That's alaskasbestlodge.com for Sportsman's Cove Lodge.
There's a place where the fishing is year-round, where the sun shines 300 days a year. The wineries and breweries are right downtown. The hiking and cycling offer spectacular views you just don't get in the big cities. Fortunately, the place is real and vibrant. It's the Dalles, Oregon, just 90 short minutes from Portland, along the gorgeous Columbia River, where the adventures are limited only by your imagination. Find out more at explorethedalles.com.
Looking to reel in the marketing opportunity of a lifetime? Then set the hook because we've got it right here. America Outdoors Radio has sponsorships available, and we offer an affordable platform to reach thousands of listeners interested in fishing, hunting, and the outdoors. Find out more by contacting host John Cruz through his website at AmericanOutdoorsRadio.com. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com. But hurry, if you wait too long, this big opportunity might just get away. That's AmericaOutdoorsRadio.com.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, a nationwide group working to keep public lands in public hands. We've helped ban the use of drones for hunting. We help repair wildlife corridors in key riparian areas. We speak up against illegal ATV use. We collaborate with elected leaders to keep public lands in public hands. We're Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, with membership in all 50 states and Canada. Please join this dynamic conservation group. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
Planning to head outdoors today? The National Shooting Sports Foundation reminds you to check the fire danger levels in your area. Whether target shooting, camping, or even parking a car with a hot exhaust, remember to take precautions. If you're going shooting in dry conditions, minimize the possible risk of fire by not using steel-jacketed or steel core ammunition, tracer rounds, or exploding targets. As we know, wildfires have many possible causes. Don't be one of them.
Our next stop on America Outdoors Radio is Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where you can hear this show on WMOH AM 1450 out of Hamilton. And that's where you're going to find Mammoth Coolers. They make some really nice coolers for a price that's not going to break the bank. And with us here to tell you a little bit more about their product line is the CEO of Mammoth Coolers, Mike Hannigan. Mike, great to have you on the air.
Great to be here.
So, Mike, what drew my attention to Mammoth Coolers this time around is the fact that you are sponsoring a really well-known tournament angler from Ohio, Bill Lowen, who competes in the Bassmaster Elite Series.
Yeah, we're real excited about the partnership with Bill. Bill actually lives nearby our headquarters there in Cincinnati. So we've got some close relationships with Bill, and we're very excited about it. And Bill is having a great year so far, and it looks like it's going to be a great long-term partnership for us.
Well, that is good to hear. And I wanted to let folks know about your coolers. They're really high end, but they don't have the same cost as some of the competition, do they?
No, we're significantly less than most of the competition. One of our biggest attributes that drives our sales is it's lighter, and therefore it's easier to use, easier to carry around. Most people don't need a big, heavy cooler for 10 days to 15 days worth of ice retention. They need an afternoon or an overnight or a day on the boat. So we've got lighter, easier to use coolers that come in at a lower cost.
The insulation in your coolers, it's not like the old Coleman and Igloo coolers. Why don't you explain to our listeners why it's different and why the difference allows you to hold ice for 8 to 10 days?
Yeah, these coolers are roto-molded, meaning that they spend about an hour on the mold, and it's rotational molded. So that mold is spun on a tree. It hangs up on an arm and spins around in a rotational pattern. And that plastic creates a layer on the inner mold and the outer mold. And then that's taken off the mold and then injected with a foam insulation. So it's more similar to your home insulation than it is to the older style coolers that had a styrofoam sheet insert between the two layers of plastic.
All right. And let's talk about a couple of the popular lines of coolers that you have, both for hunters and for anglers. You've got the Cruiser Series and the Ranger Series. Why don't you break those down?
So the Cruiser Series are the lighter, lower-costed coolers. There's 4 sizes. They range from 12 quart up to 27 quarts in their inner capacity. They range from $149.99 up to, I think it's $199.99. And they come in 3 colors. The littlest one weighs as little as 8 pounds when it's empty. So if you understand roto-molded coolers, that's very light for a roto-molded cooler. The Ranger Series, on the other hand, is a little more on par with everybody else's coolers. It's the full 2.5 to 3 inch wall thickness. Will retain ice for 10 plus days. And they come with a little heavier weight to them as well.
And how big are the Ranger coolers?
Ranger Series has a 25, a 45, 65, and then we jump all the way up to a big 125.
How do you keep your costs down compared to the competition?
We run lean and mean. We do a lot of guerrilla marketing. We don't spend a ton on our big brand partnerships, and we run a tight operation. Been around the game for about 8-9 years now, and we've been through some pretty hard times, the ups and downs of this business and the fast changes, and we've just adjusted and maintained a nice lean business stance.
Well, the last question, and perhaps the most important one, is where can folks get their hands on your coolers so they can see them, feel them, and compare them to everybody else's?
Local sporting goods dealers in your local area, the leading sporting goods dealers. If you want to review the products and just the features, you can go to mammothcooler.com, or you can see anything on amazon.com as well. There's good reviews on there.
So mammothcooler.com. Check out the coolers they have there. And they've got some really cool specialty ones, too, that as a hunter, as an angler, or maybe as a college sports enthusiast, you are going to really enjoy. You can also find them at quality sporting goods dealers near you and at amazon.com. Mammoth Coolers, they're lean, they're mean, and because of that, you're not going to pay as much as you would otherwise for a high-end, high-quality cooler. Mike, thanks for sharing this with us today on America Outdoors Radio.
Thanks.
There's one more story to cover today on America Outdoors Radio, and I want you to stick with me for this one. As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, the outdoors industry lost a good man this month. Captain Tred Barta was on a multi-month get-off-the-couch expedition to Alaska and was driving back along the Alcan Highway near Watson Lake in the Yukon Territory 2 weeks ago when he died in an auto accident. Barta burst into the outdoor scene in the early 2000s with a popular show on the Versus channel called The Best and Worst of Tred Barta. Tred would go on various hunting and fishing adventures, but he would always go after his prey in a challenging way. Or in his words, there's the easy way, and then there's the Barta way. One example of this was his preference for hunting with a long bow and homemade arrows. In 2009, though, Tred faced an abrupt, life-changing situation. He contracted blood cancer and suffered a spinal stroke that paralyzed him from below his armpits down. Most men would have gone quietly into the night and out of sight at this point, but not Tred. He continued to go on adventures despite his disabilities and wrote a book called Driven, telling the story of his journey. I was lucky enough to get Tred on this radio show when this book came out, and I've got to tell you, I was really, really impressed by Tred and his can-do attitude. Tred's life wasn't easy, though, this past few years, despite his positive, motivational attitude. He and his wife divorced in 2013, and his physical ailments continued to wear him down. He was very open about all of this on his Facebook page, and on August 3rd, just 8 days before he passed, Tred shared a long post as he neared the end of his 4.5-month journey in Alaska. You see, not only was Tred traveling through Alaska, but he was looking for a new home. He fell in love with both Seward and Valdez, but realized between housing cost, handicap accessibility issues, and the cold winters of Alaska, these places were simply not going to work. His post ended with these words: "For the first time in my life, I don't know where to turn. Where is home?" As funny as it sounds, if anyone has some suggestions of places I should look at, I appreciate it. Make no doubt about it. I've had the trip of a lifetime. I've seen and done things that I should not have been able to go accomplish, and yet I've done it. I recently came out of the hospital. They wanted me to spend a month there or more. I made a calculated decision not to. I don't want to live near a big city. I want to find a small town. For the first time in my life, I'm at a loss for what to do and where to go. I am not whining, and I'm not asking for your sympathy. It's just the truth. Tred Barta's compass is not working. I'm lost. Really depressing post. But in response, a flood of invitations, ideas, and well wishes were sent Tred's way, and his spirits were lifted. Sharing his words on Facebook again, a reply to this original post: "After reading all of your comments, which are filled with grace, kindness. I have decided that perhaps due to you and the Lord, my compass has been realigned. I'm going to take you up on many of your invitations to visit your locations in the lower 48. As I read the comments, I have been invited into many of your homes. A rancher in Montana invites me to his ranch. I now have a direction. I did not have one before. So again, I have a plan. It sounds so terribly simple. I have the Lord, and for now, all of you are my family. I plan to leave Alaska in less than a week. I think I will head down the most western side so I can check out Washington and Oregon before making a left turn. There are so many good Christians on this site. Every time you quote the scripture, I write it down and look up the passage. Today is a better day, as I have hope for my future. Thank you all so much. As you know, Tred didn't make it to Montana, but he also left this earth with hope instead of depression, and I, for one, am confident he is now in a much better place, where he can not only walk again, but he can run and maybe even fly. Rest in peace, Tred, and thank you for sharing the outdoors and your stories of perseverance with all of us. It's time to wrap things up, and next weekend is Labor Day weekend, which means it's going to be really crowded out there on the road and in any campgrounds or parks you may be tempted to visit. But the 1st of September also means the opening of quite a few hunting seasons, and the month of September might be one of the best months for fishing there is. With all of that in mind, I hope you're able to spend some time outside and maybe even away from the crowds. I also hope you're blessed in the days ahead, and do remember this: it is your country and your outdoors, so get out there and enjoy it.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing. Lend your voice to the fight by visiting backcountryhunters.org and join the 25,000 men and women who have pledged to defend wildlife and public access.